Every December 31st at midnight, you participate in the largest synchronized energy harvest in human history. And you think you're celebrating. While you count down those final 10 seconds, while champagne corks explode, and strangers kiss, and you shout promises into the void about becoming better, something ancient feeds, not metaphorically, actually feeds. The calendar you trust, the date you honor, the midnight you worship, none of it is real. January 1st has no cosmic significance. The Earth doesn't reset its orbit. The sun doesn't mark a threshold. The stars don't align. Yet on this single fabricated moment, over 4 billion humans synchronize their consciousness, flood their nervous systems with dopamine and alcohol, and hemorrhage emotional energy into a temporal construct designed 2,000 years ago by Roman priests who understood something we've forgotten. You're not celebrating a new beginning. You're renewing a contract. And the entity that feeds on your annual optimism, your resolution-fueled desperation, your collective belief in arbitrary fresh starts, it doesn't want you to stop. It needs you to believe the lie is real. Because the moment you realize December 31st is a fiction, the harvest ends. And the parasite starves. Listen to what happens every year. Somewhere between Christmas and New Year's Eve, a pressure builds. You feel it in your chest, in your throat, a restlessness, a sense that something must change, must be different, must transform when that clock strikes 12. You scroll through social media and see everyone else performing the same ritual, the countdowns, the resolutions, the desperate hope that this year will be the year everything finally clicks into place. Why does it feel so urgent? Why does an arbitrary date transition create such emotional intensity? You've lived through 364 other midnights this year, and none of them carried this weight. What makes this one different? Nothing. Absolutely nothing makes it different, except the belief, except the collective agreement that it matters. And that belief, that synchronized spike of hope and intention and chemically altered consciousness, that's the harvest. That's what feeds. The Romans knew this. The Vatican knows this. The entities that exist in the spaces between consensus reality and pure consciousness, they've always known this. Time isn't what you think it is. And the calendar you've been handed isn't measuring reality. It's creating it. Or more accurately, it's creating a false reality that siphons energy from the actual cosmic cycles your body is designed to track. You've been celebrating on the wrong day, making promises at the wrong time, investing hope into a temporal construct that guarantees failure, and you do it every single year, wondering why the resolutions never stick, why the fresh start never feels fresh, why January 2nd always feels exactly like December 30th with a different number attached. What if I told you there's a reason the resolutions always fail? What if the failure is the point? What if you're not supposed to transform, you're supposed to return, year after year, increasingly desperate, increasingly willing to pour more energy into the ritual, because maybe this time, maybe this year, maybe if you just believe hard enough, the parasite doesn't want you to succeed. It wants you to hope. And then fail. And then hope again, because that cycle, that oscillation between desperate optimism and crushing disappointment, that's premium fuel. That's pure, distilled emotional energy with nowhere to go except into the thought form that lives in the threshold between December 31st and January 1st. Let me show you how deep this goes. In 153 BC, Roman consuls moved New Year from March to January to honor Janus, the two-faced god of thresholds, transitions and doorways, one face looking backward at the past, one forward into the future. This wasn't administrative convenience. This was spiritual infrastructure. What the history books don't tell you, Janus wasn't just symbolic. He was a temporal entity, an egregore, a thought form given power through collective attention and ritual sacrifice. The Roman priesthood knew this. They understood that consciousness, when focused collectively, creates reality. They built entire temples to capture and direct the energy of liminal moments, births, deaths, marriages, and most potently, the perceived death and rebirth of the year itself. The Temple of Janus in the Roman Forum had a unique feature. Its doors were left open during wartime and closed during peace. For over 700 years, those doors stayed open. War fed Janus constantly, but the annual New Year ritual, that fed him universally. Soldier and civilian alike, conqueror and conquered. Everyone participated. Here's what they understood that we've forgotten. Liminal spaces, thresholds, doorways, transition points exist in a state of quantum superposition. They're simultaneously the ending of one thing and the beginning of another, which means they're actually neither. They're between. And in that between space, in that moment of neither here nor there, consciousness becomes malleable, suggestible, exploitable. Every doorway is a portal, every threshold is a gateway. And midnight on New Year's Eve, that's the ultimate threshold, the moment between years. The doorway between past and future, the exact point where Janus feeds. When Pope Gregory VIII reformed the calendar in 1582, he didn't just correct astronomical drift caused by the Julian calendar's miscalculation of the solar year. He standardized the harvest, he synchronized the entire Christian world, and eventually, through colonization, most of the planet, to feed the same temporal construct on the same night, at the same hour. The Gregorian calendar isn't a neutral measurement of time, it's ritual infrastructure. Look at the etymology. Calendar derives from the Latin calendae, the first day of the Roman month when debts were due, when accounts were settled, when you paid what you owed. You're not celebrating on New Year's Eve. You're paying tribute. The debt comes due every December 31st, and you pay it with hope, with intention, with the chemical cocktail flooding your nervous system as you count down to midnight. And here's what they don't mention in schools. 8 months of our year are named after Roman deities, emperors, and numbers that no longer match their position. September means 7, it's the 9th month. October means 8, it's the 10th. November means 9, it's the 11th. December means 10, it's the 12th. The calendar is deliberately corrupted, intentionally misaligned with natural cycles. Why? Because confusion generates exploitable energy. When you celebrate something arbitrary as if it's sacred, you create belief without foundation, faith without substance, devotion without object. And that kind of consciousness? That's premium fuel. It's pure, ungrounded emotional energy with no natural outlet, no biological imperative, no cosmic correspondence. So it pools. It accumulates. And the entity that exists in the space you've collectively agreed matters. The midnight between December 31st and January 1st drinks deeply. In 1582, when the Gregorian calendar was implemented, 10 days were simply erased from existence. October 4th was followed immediately by October 15th. 10 days, gone. Deleted from consensus reality. And nobody rioted. Nobody protested. Because time isn't real in the way you think it is, it's a collective agreement, a social construct. And when the authorities change the construct, most people simply adjust. But here's what happened energetically. Those 10 days didn't disappear. They collapsed into the liminal space. They fed the threshold. They strengthened the temporal parasite by proving that time itself is arbitrary, that humans will accept any framework they're handed, that the masses can be synchronized to celebrate, mourn, work, and rest on command. The calendar is a control mechanism, not in a political sense, in an energetic one. It's a device for synchronizing billions of human nervous systems to fire simultaneously, creating coherent emotional states at predetermined moments. Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day. These aren't organic celebrations. They're scheduled harvests. And New Year's Eve is the big one. It's the apex. The moment when more humans simultaneously experience hope, desperation, intoxication, and the desire for transformation than any other point in the calendar. 4 billion people. One moment. One collective spike of consciousness. Can you imagine the energetic magnitude? Can you feel the weight of that much focused belief? That's not celebration, that's feeding time. Time doesn't flow. You do. Quantum physics proved this decades ago. In 1935, Einstein and his colleagues published the Temporal paradox, demonstrating that there's no objective now moving through the universe. Time is a perceptual construct generated by consciousness observing entropy. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously. You're just moving through them, and the direction you call forward is simply the direction entropy increases. But we live inside a 365-day cage that resets annually, training your nervous system to experience cyclical renewal on command. Here's the mechanism. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine that syncs to environmental rhythms, circadian cycles, lunar phases, seasonal shifts. These are biological, electromagnetic, real. Your pineal gland responds to light frequencies. Your cells have their own circadian clocks, independent of your conscious mind. Your mitochondria produce AMP based on sunlight exposure. You are, quite literally, a biological antenna tuned to natural electromagnetic rhythms. The Gregorian New Year is none of these. It falls 10 days after the winter solstice, weeks before the Lunar New Year, and has zero correspondence to natural transition points. The Earth hasn't completed anything on January 1st. No cosmic cycle reaches fruition. No biological imperative demands recognition. It's arbitrary. But because billions of humans have agreed it matters, your mirror neurons fire. Your limbic system responds. Your body produces the neurochemistry of transformation without any actual transformation occurring. This is hormonal hijacking. On December 31st, your dopamine spikes in anticipation. This is the same neurotransmitter that fires when you're about to receive a reward, when you're gambling, when you're falling in love. Your brain is anticipating something good, something different, something better. But there's no actual reward coming, just a date change, just midnight, just another moment that will pass exactly like all the others. Your cortisol rises from social pressure. Everyone around you is celebrating, performing joy, demonstrating hope. If you're not participating, you're failing socially. Your nervous system registers this as threat. Even if you're alone, you see the celebrations online, and your brain knows you're supposed to be doing something, feeling something, transforming something. Then you flood your system with substances that lower discernment: alcohol, sugar, stimulants. Your prefrontal cortex goes offline. Your capacity for critical thinking diminishes. You become emotional, reactive, suggestible. In this state, you make resolutions. You set intentions. You promise yourself that this year will be different. And at midnight, you experience a chemically induced peak emotional state, while mentally projecting hope, intention, and energy into the construct of next year. Where does that energy go? Not into your actual future. You can't send energy forward through time. That's not how consciousness works. Energy exists in the present moment. Always. When you invest in your future, you're actually creating a psychological construct right now, in the present, that you'll hopefully remember and act on tomorrow. But on New Year's Eve, you're not investing in a concrete plan. You're not creating actionable steps. You're performing a ritual. You're making abstract declarations. I'll be healthier, I'll be better, I'll be different. With no specificity, no accountability, and no biological support. Where does that energy go? Into the thought form. The egregore. The parasite that lives in the liminal space between December 31st and January 1st, feeding on the emotional differential between your desperation to escape the past and your hope that an arbitrary date change will save you. And here's the trap within the trap. They designed the resolution ritual to guarantee failure. Think about it. You're making life-changing commitments while chemically compromised, with no planning, no support structures, no realistic timeline. You're setting abstract goals: lose weight, save money, find love, during the darkest, coldest, most biologically depleted part of the year. If you live in the northern hemisphere, your body is in hibernation mode. Your metabolism has slowed. Your serotonin production is decreased due to reduced sunlight. Your energy reserves are low. You're operating at a biological deficit. And this is when they tell you to start exercising more, eating less, working harder, transforming completely. You're not supposed to succeed. You're supposed to fail. By February, 80% of New Year's resolutions have been abandoned. By March, 92%. These aren't personal failures. This is systemic design. Because when you fail, when the resolution collapses and you return to your old patterns, what happens emotionally? Shame, disappointment, self-judgment, a sense of being broken, of lacking willpower, of being unable to change. And that emotional state? That keeps you desperate. That ensures you'll return next December 31st, even more convinced you need the ritual, even more willing to pour energy into it, even more hopeful that maybe this time, maybe this year, if you just believe hard enough. The cycle is the point. The failure is the feature, not the bug. Because a human who succeeds in transformation stops feeding the parasite. But a human who tries and tries again and fails again, year after year, hemorrhaging hope into an arbitrary threshold, that human is a renewable resource. You've been farmed, and the crop is your consciousness. Her name was Miriam. She was 34, a project manager in Seattle. And she'd made the same 3 resolutions for 6 consecutive years. Lose weight, save money, find love. Every January 1st felt like standing at the base of a mountain she'd already climbed 5 times, only to slide back down by March. The gym membership she'd use for 3 weeks. The budget spreadsheet she'd maintain for a month. The dating apps she'd delete by Valentine's Day. Same cycle, same failure, same shame. In December 2019, something shifted. She was alone on New Year's Eve. No party, no countdown, no champagne. Her friends had invited her to celebrations, but she'd declined. She told them she was tired. She was, but it was a deeper exhaustion than physical fatigue. She was tired of performing hope, tired of pretending an arbitrary midnight mattered, so she sat in her apartment in silence. Lights off. Phone silenced, just her breath and the darkness and the sound of distant fireworks beginning as the city counted down to midnight. And in that silence, she felt it. A pressure. A pull. Like invisible hands tugging at her chest, trying to extract something. She described it later as someone trying to siphon hope from my body. Not her words, that was the image that came. A straw. A tube. Something drinking from her sternum, pulling at the space behind her heart. Her first instinct was panic. Her second was curiosity. She'd been meditating for years, practicing Vipassana, learning to observe sensation without reaction. So instead of resisting, she watched. She tracked the sensation, noticed its texture, its temperature, its rhythm. The pull intensified as midnight approached. She could hear neighbors counting down. 10, 9, 8, and with each number, the pressure increased. Her heart rate elevated. Her palms began to sweat. And she wasn't even participating. She was just sitting there, breathing, and her body was responding to the collective ritual happening around her. 7, 6, 5. The pull became almost unbearable, like something was trying to rip through her chest from the inside, like her hope, her intention, her very life force was being vacuumed out through an invisible aperture. 4, 3, 2, 1. Midnight. The pressure peaked. For a single moment it felt like her entire chest was going to collapse inward. And then it dissipated. The moment January 1st arrived, the pull vanished. Not gradually, instantly, like a switch had been flipped. And she felt exhausted, drained, hollow, like she'd run a marathon in her sleep. Her body was trembling, she was covered in sweat, and she'd been sitting completely still for 20 minutes. What the hell was that? She started researching. She's the kind of person who needs data, who needs frameworks, who needs to understand the mechanism before she can accept the phenomenon. So she dug. She found declassified Soviet psychotronics research from the 1970s showing that synchronized emotional events create measurable electromagnetic fields. Studies where thousands of people meditated simultaneously and random number generators within a 100-mile radius began producing non-random results. The data was there. Consciousness affects physical reality. Coherent group consciousness affects it even more powerfully. She found anthropological accounts of egregores, entities that exist only as long as humans feed them attention. Thought forms. Tulpas. Gods created through collective belief. In Tibetan Buddhism, they're called emanations. In Western occultism, servitors. Different names for the same phenomenon, consciousness, when focused collectively and persistently, creates semi-autonomous entities that can act independently of any individual human mind. She found historical records of mass hysteria, collective possession, dancing plagues, events where entire communities synchronized into altered states and couldn't break free until the collective belief dissipated. The pattern was always the same. Belief creates reality, and collective belief creates collective reality. 4 billion people believing simultaneously that midnight on an arbitrary date marks a cosmic threshold? That's enough focused consciousness to birth a god, or feed one that already exists. Here's the practice she developed. On December 31st, do nothing. No resolutions, no celebration, no countdown. Instead, sit in stillness from 11:50 p.m. to 12:10 am. 20 minutes. That's all. Just sit, breathe, and observe. Feel the pull. Notice the pressure building as midnight approaches. Track it in your body. Don't judge it. Don't resist it. Don't feed it. Just witness it. And when you feel that invisible siphon trying to extract your hope, your energy, your intention, consciously refuse to give it. Not with force, not with anger, just with sovereignty. Just with the simple recognition, this is my energy, and I do not consent to its extraction. Miriam did this for 3 years. The first year was the hardest. The pull was intense, almost overwhelming, because she'd been feeding the ritual for 33 years. The parasite expected its due. By the second year, the pressure was less. By the third year, she felt nothing. Just stillness, just midnight passing like any other midnight. The parasite had stopped reaching for her. It had learned she wasn't a source anymore. She'd broken the contract. And in breaking it, she discovered something else. January didn't feel different than December. But March did. April did. May, June, July, each month felt more aligned, more coherent, more connected to her actual life instead of an arbitrary calendar structure. She wasn't living year to year anymore. She was living day to day, breath to breath. And the resolutions? She didn't need them. Change happened organically when her nervous system wasn't being hijacked annually by a temporal parasite demanding tribute. You weren't always this disconnected from real time. Your ancestors, 10 generations back, 100, 1,000, they tracked the solstices. The actual moments when Earth's axial tilt creates maximum and minimum daylight. December 21st or 22nd in the northern hemisphere, when the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky and then begins its return. This wasn't symbolic. This was survival. Knowing when to plant, when to harvest, when to conserve resources, when to prepare for abundance. They honored the equinoxes, the balance points between light and dark, when day and night are equal. March 20th and September 22nd, roughly. Moments of equilibrium, moments when the electromagnetic field of the Earth stabilizes before shifting into the next phase of the seasonal cycle. They followed the moon's phases because their bodies did. Women's menstrual cycles synchronized with lunar rhythms, ovulation at the full moon, menstruation at the new moon. This isn't folklore, this is documented biology. Before artificial light disrupted circadian rhythms, women who lived together would cycle together, and their cycles would align with the 29.5-day lunar month. Sleep patterns shifted with seasonal light exposure. In winter, humans naturally sleep more. In summer, less. Your melatonin production is directly tied to the duration and quality of sunlight your eyes receive. Before electricity, humans slept an average of 10 hours per night in winter, 6 in summer. Now we force ourselves into 8-hour cycles year-round and wonder why we're exhausted. This wasn't superstition. This was biological coherence. Your ancestors lived in sync with the actual rhythms of the planet, and their nervous systems were regulated by those rhythms. They experienced less anxiety, less depression, less existential dread, not because their lives were easier, but because their bodies were aligned with reality. And your dinner still carries this encoding. Studies in chronobiology show that your cells have their own circadian clocks, independent of your brain. Every cell in your body has clock genes, BMAL1, clock, PER, cry, that regulate when genes are expressed, when proteins are synthesized, when cellular repair occurs. These clocks sync to light, to temperature, to electromagnetic fields, not to calendars, not to arbitrary date changes, to actual environmental inputs. Your mitochondria respond to light frequencies. Red and near-infrared wavelengths stimulate AP production. Blue light suppresses melatonin. Your body knows what time it is, based on the quality of light hitting your retinas, not based on what number is written on a calendar. Your pineal gland produces melatonin based on electromagnetic input from the sun and Earth's Schumann resonance, the fundamental frequency at which the Earth's electromagnetic field vibrates, approximately 7.83 Hz. When you're in coherence with this frequency, your nervous system regulates beautifully. Sleep improves. Mood stabilizes. Inflammation decreases. When you're out of sync, living in artificial light, surrounded by electromagnetic pollution, disconnected from natural cycles, your biology struggles. You are a biological antenna designed to sync with natural cycles. The Gregorian calendar is electromagnetic noise. It overrides your organic timing system with an artificial one, and the cost is measurable. Seasonal affective disorder, disrupted sleep, metabolic dysfunction, hormonal dysregulation, and a profound sense of being out of sync with life itself. You feel it, don't you? That sense of being slightly out of phase with reality. Like you're running on a clock that doesn't quite match the rhythm of the world around you. That's not depression. That's not a personal failing. That's biological desynchronization caused by living inside a fabricated temporal structure. But here's the gift hidden in the trap you can remember. Your body already knows. It's been waiting for your mind to stop overriding it. On the winter solstice, December 21st or 22nd, depending on the year, your body already knows something's happening. It feels the turning. The return of the light. This is the true new year. The moment when Earth's relationship with the sun shifts from contraction to expansion. From the longest night to the gradual return of longer days. From darkness, moving toward light. This is biology. This is astronomy. This is real. And you don't need a party to honor it. You don't need resolutions. You don't need to perform transformation. You just need to be present. To sit with the darkest part of the year and let your nervous system recalibrate to the fact that the light is returning. Not because a calendar says so. Because the planet's tilt says so. You don't need to force change. You need alignment. And alignment doesn't require effort. It requires presence. It requires you to stop overriding your body's wisdom with cultural programming. It requires you to trust that your nervous system knows how to sync with natural cycles if you just let it. Instead of celebrating an arbitrary midnight, spend the solstice in stillness. Go outside if you can. Feel the cold. Notice the quality of light. Observe the silence that comes with the longest night. Let your body remember what it already knows. The light always returns. Not because you hope for it, not because you make resolutions, because that's what the earth does. It turns. It tilts. It continues. And you're part of that turning. You're not separate from the cycle. You are the cycle. Your cells are regenerating. Your breath is flowing. Your heart is beating in rhythm with the electromagnetic pulse of the planet. You've never been disconnected. You've just been told you are. You've been handed a calendar that doesn't match your biology and told to live by it. This is how you stop feeding the parasite. You stop participating in the lie. You withdraw your energy from the fabricated ritual and reinvest it in actual cosmic rhythms. You let your body lead. You trust the cycles that have been operating for 4 billion years instead of the construct that's been operating for 443 years. And when enough humans do this, when enough people stop feeding the New Year's Eve egregore and start honoring the actual transitions that matter, the parasite collapses, not through force, not through protest, through starvation. It can't feed on energy that isn't being offered. Remember the opening question. Why does January 1st feel so important when it's cosmically meaningless? Now you know. It feels important because billions of humans have been conditioned to make it important, and that collective belief generates a standing wave of energy that an ancient thought form harvests annually. The weight you feel isn't cosmic significance. It's the accumulated pressure of 4 billion nervous systems synchronized to fire simultaneously. But here's what's changed. You're hearing this. You know. And the moment you know, the contract weakens. Knowledge breaks consent. Awareness dissolves agreements you never consciously made. You don't need to convince anyone else. You don't need to protest or proselytize or post manifestos on social media about temporal parasites. You simply stop feeding. Quietly. Personally. Sovereignly. This December 31st, when everyone around you counts down, when the pressure builds to perform celebration, to manufacture hope, to promise change, you'll feel it differently. You'll recognize the pull for what it is, an invitation to hemorrhage energy into a construct that doesn't serve you. An invitation you're allowed to decline. Not with anger, not with superiority, not with judgment of those who are still participating. With sovereignty, with the simple recognition that your energy is yours, and you get to decide where it goes. You might be at a party, you might be alone. Either way, when midnight approaches, you can choose presence over performance. You can breathe, you can observe, you can feel the pull and consciously refuse to give what's being asked. And in that refusal, you reclaim something essential. Something that's been siphoned from you every year since you were old enough to understand what a countdown means. Your hope, your intention, your belief in your own capacity for transformation. These aren't resources to be extracted annually and gambled on arbitrary date changes. These are yours. They belong in your body, in your daily life, in the small moments of choice that actually create change. Real transformation doesn't happen at midnight on New Year's Eve. It happens at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, when you choose differently than you did yesterday. It happens in the morning when you wake up aligned with your body instead of at war with it. It happens when you stop waiting for calendar permission to become who you already are. The solstice already passed. The light is already returning, not because you made a resolution, because that's what light does. It returns. It always has. It always will. And you're made of the same material as stars. Hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, all of it forged in stellar cores and scattered through space when those stars died. You're not separate from cosmic cycles. You're an expression of them. Your body is a miniature solar system. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field. Your brain produces measurable frequencies. Your cells vibrate. You are, quite literally, a pattern of energy temporarily organized into the form you call yourself. And that energy knows how to sync with natural rhythms if you stop forcing it to sync with fabricated ones. Here's your practice, not for New Year's Eve, for right now, for this moment, for every moment. It's simple, deceptively simple, but simplicity is where power lives. On the night of December 31st, before midnight, find a quiet space. It doesn't matter if you're alone or surrounded by people. You can do this internally. And speak these words aloud if you can, or silently if you must. 3 times. Let the words recalibrate your nervous system. Let them dissolve the invisible contract you never consciously signed. I honor time that moves through me, not time that controls me. Say it slowly. Feel each word in your body. Notice where it lands. Time moves through you. You're not trapped inside it. You're the awareness that perceives it. And anything that perceives cannot be controlled by what it perceives. I release all false thresholds and trust my body's knowing. False thresholds, arbitrary midnights, fabricated new years. Release them. Not with effort, but with recognition. They were never real. Your body knows the real thresholds, the solstices, the equinoxes, the moon's phases, the rhythm of your own breath. Trust that knowing. I am the cycle, the season, the return. Not separate from nature, not outside the cosmic rhythm. You are the rhythm. You're the earth tilting back toward the sun. You're the moon waxing and waning. You're the breath moving in and out. You're the cycle itself, experiencing itself, returning to itself. 3 times. Let it become a transmission, not just words. Let it reset something deep in your nervous system. And then, let it go. You don't need to perform this practice. You don't need to make it a ritual. You just need to remember it once, deeply, and your body will integrate it. The parasite doesn't die when you stop feeding it. It just stops feeding on you. And maybe that's enough. Maybe liberation isn't about destroying the system. Maybe it's about withdrawing your energy from it so completely that it can't find you anymore. The thought form that lives in the threshold between December 31st and January 1st will continue to exist as long as billions of humans keep feeding it. You're not responsible for waking everyone up. You're not responsible for dismantling the entire Gregorian calendar infrastructure. You're responsible for your own energy, your own consciousness, your own sovereignty. And when you reclaim that, when you stop giving away your hope to an arbitrary midnight and start investing it in the actual moments of your actual life, everything changes. Not on January 1st. Right now, the new year isn't coming on January 1st. It already came, on the solstice, when the earth remembered how to turn back toward the light. Your body knew. It's been waiting for your mind to catch up. And now you know too. The contract is broken. Not because you fought it, because you simply stopped signing.